I am Joshua K. Sabra, Esquire, and he is Dr. Miles Salisbury. And you are listening to the Miles Ahead podcast, where we share tactics, techniques, and protocol to improve your physical, mental, and spiritual health while you walk the path of the warrior. Stay tuned. In today's episode, Dr. Miles and I discuss the most important input into your quality of life, and that is your personal relationships, your friendships, your romantic relationships, how you develop deeper personal friendships and romantic relationships, as well as how you deal with disconnection. So this topic will impact your choice of mates, your career, the quality of work that you get to do. It'll impact almost every area of your life. And we're going to go deep into the underpinnings of your personal relationships, which is attachment theory, including your personal attachment style or habits you may have in alignment with some of the more common attachment styles. So this is a dense episode. It's a long episode. Hope you get a pen and a piece of paper, take copious notes, maybe listen to it twice so that you can get the most out of this. Stay tuned. And we're live.
And we're back.
We never left.
Yeah, we've just been sitting here on pause.
What the hell's going on? You're feeling like crap today because of withdrawal from multiple substances, meth?
Oh,
cocaine?
Yeah, heroin, all that stuff. No, just PSA. Don't try Zen pouches. Don't try them. They do enhance the cognitive benefits. Short doses, 3 milligrams a day, every day is fine. But it's very, 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 very hard to not let that spin out to, ooh, this feels really good. If you're prone to depression or needing things to regulate your nervous system, you'll quickly become addicted. I now know why smokers have a hard time quitting. So I was messing with these Zen pouches, and it just got progressively more and more. And then it's like, this isn't good for my body, not good for heart rate. And so I cold turkeyed it like a month ago. And I was like, it was like 4 days of absolute fucking hell, depression, anxiety, brain fog. And I started to feel better. And then when you start to feel better, like, ooh, I like to feel good. I remember I felt good on nicotine. I'll just have one. And then it spiraled back to, as addictions go. So this is round number 2, and I'm using nicotine patches to slowly wean. So instead of a cold turkey, it's a slow suck, but it's easier in some sense because I don't feel as junk. But cold turkey, you get out of it quicker. So pros and cons. So I'm fighting through that. Never thought I'd find myself in this realm. It's very strange to feel like I didn't have substance abuse problems growing up at all. I don't drink now, barely ever. So yeah, just careful what you put in your body. You never know what neurochemistry lights up and what you like and what you won't like. If you're not prone to addiction, doesn't run in your family, you're not prone to depression, you don't have trauma, you have a securely based attachment style, and you're like a perfect human, which doesn't exist, probably don't try nicotine. It's highly addictive, and now I know why. It's just bizarre. And I don't smoke. That's absolutely disgusting, or vape. I'd never do that. I think that's why I went here, because it was so easy. Like, oh, it's just a pouch. It's not tobacco. It's healthy, quote unquote, which it's not. In short doses, with that rare human who can manage it, like 1 pouch every other day, yeah, you're probably completely fine. If you want to do like a focused and concentrated work session on something, it definitely gets all the catecholamines going in your brain, increases dopamine, norepinephrine, all that good stuff, and you will focus. But you might find yourself feeling a little too good. You're like, ooh, I'll take another one and another one. And then you're off. And then that's addiction. So that's where I find myself, good times. So if I feel a little bit off to you today or in a brain fog, that's why. You probably won't notice, but I notice, and you didn't notice till I told you, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's only you know what your 100% feels like.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And your experience really gels with the way you described the increasing doses of nicotine describes my relationship with just about anything I've used for an escape. Alcohol, um, caffeine, anything that I feel like makes me feel good.
Damn, caffeine counts, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And like the first couple cups are great. And then for me, if I wanted to get away from an irritating feeling, I would just have another cup of coffee. And I could easily drink a pot of coffee or 2 pots of coffee a day if I just had it around. And it, I got addicted and dependent. And then I came off of it.
I bet it felt good on that one.
Oh, Jesus Christ. It was so strange. Felt like I was in a car accident, like my spine hurt.
Yeah.
Like I had like sciatic pain down both legs.
Yeah, headaches.
What in the world?
Brain fog, yeah. It's a similar draw to caffeine, like nicotine, caffeine, cocaine, all these enes. Similar neural pathways it's hitting.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the problem with drugs and alcohol and any numbing or avoiding behavior. It works. And then to keep it working, you have to keep going.
That's the problem. You have to tolerance. Fuck you, tolerance.
Yeah, and that's we'll get into it a little bit later, but in the ego racing part. But I remember when I was younger, I didn't know that it was bad to be able to drink a lot. Like to be able to smash beers and like drink copious amounts of booze.
It's almost like a point of pride in our culture or drinking cultures. He drank them under the table.
Well, that's the thing is it's not automatically like in the Army and the Navy, it's certainly a large part of the culture, but there was always people in the room that didn't. Like there are a lot of Mormons in the Army that just didn't drink at all. Yep, lots of people who are straight edge that just didn't drink. And I say lots. I mean, like every platoon has a couple that are just beyond it, and they seem like aliens when you're a teenager and you're smashing down booze. But then like you get around the other males who are also teenagers or in their early 20s, and it's this weird like thing where people are spurring you on to do more and more destructive things to yourself. I remember like the MPs getting called to our barracks for people jumping out of like a third story balcony to land on we threw all our mattresses out on the ground. So you would hop out onto a pile of mattresses.
You're just practicing your jumps, right? Yeah. Proper landing. What if we were hammered and we're going to combat? We got every contingency. We got to practice.
So I feel like that's a fairly tame call for the police to respond to in the base. Like, well, at least, someone did break an arm, but it could have been a lot worse. Someone could have died.
Just going to say, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Someone else in my barracks threw an oven out of a window and destroyed the window and the oven, of course, at the same time. That dude was huge. That dude was
to throw an oven out a window.
To toss an oven. It was like a shot put. It wasn't really like a long throw. It was more of like a smashing out the window and throwing it.
Did you have like a Hulk moment? What the hell's going on?
Yeah, I think he was juiced, and he had a lot going on. I think he was going through a breakup, but the sergeant major, he got arrested, obviously, and then had to pay for it. Not only did he have to pay for it, he had to personally install the new window and do the work, and the sergeant major supervised it.
The MPs arrest him or the police?
Oh, yeah, the MPs is in the barracks.
Yeah, but normal police not allowed in.
And so alcohol-related incident, and I think that they just wanted to make a demonstration that if you do anything to interrupt the flow of life for the other soldiers, that you were going to personally make sure that you unscrewed that situation, which is a good lesson. And I think it made everybody think a little bit more about it.
I don't want to do that. Yeah.
Well, what
are we talking about today besides addiction? That'll actually weave back into what we're talking about, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. So today we're talking about relationships, and so like we were saying before we turn this on. This might be the most important conversation in terms of the quality of life. Your social capital, the people around you, are going to determine a lot of where you live, what you do, how healthy you are, what opportunities you have for career and for mating. Your personal relationships are probably the most important part of your quality of life. And right now in the U.S., we're at an all-time low on social connectivity for a variety of reasons that we're going to get into. But particularly men, but I think lots of Americans self-report that they have less than one close friend, close relationship. So this is not even new. This is not because of social media. These statistics were out before social media has existed, and I think I'd be interested to see how that number has been impacted. I bet people talk to more people now because of social media, but the quality of the relationship may or may not have improved. So people may still have very few close relationships, but maybe they have more frequent contact with other people via the digital mechanisms.
It's not in vivo, it's digital. Yeah. Difference.
So we're gonna talk about what we're doing to keep ourselves from connecting. So how are we getting in the way of of developing lasting, meaningful friendships and personal relationships, romantic relationships? How are we sabotaging them? What are the symptoms and the pain points of us humans as we go through our life trying to continue to maintain friendships and build new ones, and the mistakes we make along the way, and hopefully we'll give you a couple of really solid definitions on friendship and definitions of love and belonging. And I'm sure Miles is going to go deep on some nerd stuff around the psychology of attachment and relationships, both in theory and in practice.
Good times.
Yeah. Let's say we skipped this. What are you listening to right now?
Oh, I forgot. Yes. I was just playing it for you in the car. If anyone needs a good show, so first go watch the movie. It's called The Gentleman. It's Guy Ritchie movie. He's amazing. And then he's done a show called The Gentleman. It's so freaking good. And one of the songs on the second episode was really good. And it's this English rapper out of Liverpool. I think iStar is his name. And the album's Scousematic too. And Scouse is the Liverpoolian accent. And the song is called Cop That Shit with a K. It sounds so stupid, but the song is actually quite dope. It's really good. So that's what I've been listening to. And you heard it, and I don't know what you thought. Like, you're probably like, why is he listening to this? But maybe you liked it. I don't know.
Oh, well, I wouldn't have picked out the Liverpudlian accent.
Liverpudlian, there you go. Yeah, yeah. Well, you got that right.
I love it. No, you played it for me in the car. That was fun. It is fun. So you should check that out. It's a fun.
I'll link it.
Yeah, and link it up. And then I've been listening to the Talking Heads.
Oh, good. Good one.
Oh, man. David Byrne.
A song in particular?
Oh.
Or just an album?
What is the... it's on my phone. I think right now.
Dig it up so it can link to a specific song. I don't know if people are even...
Oh, yeah, Once in a Lifetime, Death.
Oh, that's a good one, yeah. Great one.
So, in the thing about David Byrne is his motivation is, or his lyrical inspiration was just making up things he thought a pastor would say. And it's a lot of his songs, they're epic and they're super cool. And in an interview, someone asked him like where he got how long did he have like a journal, or is he was he writing stories or themes? He's like, no, it's all just nonsense. He's like, I would just pretend I was a pastor, and this is what I thought an evangelical would say or something like that. And we're like, what? It's all nonsense.
Actually kind of fits if you think about it.
It totally fits. Like in retrospect, if you look at his work, you're like, yeah. Okay.
Those guys are riffing too.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah, I love it. It's a feel good, that once in a lifetime song. It kind of like
It is good.
it makes me feel good. It also reminds me of like how lucky I am to just be in this world that I'm in right now, and have wonderful people around me, and get to wake up late and drink coffee with my girlfriend and look at the fireplace and pet the cats and go to this beautiful, live in this beautiful suburb and just really enjoy my life. It's a stark contrast from where I began, and I'm deeply appreciative of it.
So you're noticing the good,
Noticing the good. That's correct.
not biasing towards the negative.
No, no, exactly. So yeah, those are what I'm listening to. That's what you're listening to. Let's talk about relationships. And I wanted to talk about the pain. Start with the painful reality. We talked about it a little bit at the beginning of the show, but the painful reality we find ourselves in. And I think most people that I see like complain in my social media sphere and talk about toxic friendships, toxic relationships, being friends with people that use them, I think are a common cry. And also just not having anyone that they can rely on, in the sense that people feel like a lack of community in the way of, not that they don't have a geographic community, but that they don't have people who are looking out for them in the way that they say they're looking out for other people. Who knows what other people's lives are going on, what their life really looks like. But I think a lot of people, including me, have had the experience of having friendships where you hang out with somebody and then they leave and you're like, why am I friends with this person? What on earth am I getting out of this? Like,
It's a good question to ask.
that was exhausting, And by the way, so I've been that person for other people. So,
I think we all have had a flavor of that, I'm sure.
for sure. But so I think that's a common or a normal situation to find ourselves in.
Mm-hmm.
And just like having fake friendships where we feel like we have to fit in. So I have to like put on a jersey to be part of this crowd. And
Hopefully it's an Arsenal jersey.
that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's part of this is people treat, because they want to be a part of something, they do put on jerseys. And that's one reason I think people like really love sports franchises, is because you get to root for a team.
Yes.
You're all on the same team. If you're wearing the jersey,
It's ready-made.
There's a shared experience that you get from it.
Mm-hmm. The highs and the lows.
Yeah. And then like, I think of a lot of like, and not just, I think books have been written about how politics has become that for a lot of people.
Oh, for sure.
Where they're like, I have to do this. I have to be a liberal to be able to hang out with these people, and have to, think like everyone else thinks in my tribe.
Or else you might get exiled. And that's scary. Yeah.
That's right. Neil Brennan's stand-up bit. Are you liberal enough? Are you really liberal? It's like constant the conversation that they're constantly having. It's like, how liberal are you?
Becomes like a Olympics sport at some point for any political party. Yeah, if you identify with your politics, that's a bad psychological move, because then you have to be right, or else who am I? If I'm wrong, then my identity's crushed.
Well, you can't be wrong. I mean, like, but because politics is about opinions, like the definition of success is feelings and like who you feel in alignment with. I guess in that way it's a real safe place. But anyways, people feeling like they have to fit in. I'm using air quotes, but fitting in is the opposite of love and belonging, and that's different than playing along, which I think we should also talk about, because but people feel like they have relationships that suck the energy out of them, or very few relationships, if any, or relationships where they're not really able to show up as themselves. And I think that probably encompasses a lot of what I've certainly experienced for a variety of reasons. And I think just according to social media and some opinion polls, I think that's a common Would you add anything to that, to the experience that people might be having around friendships and relationships?
Yeah, I don't know if it's not very authentic, it seems right now, or there's not a lot of how to do that authentically, or I don't want to say naturally, because of all the digital and social media crap, and the like identifying with a certain group, and it gets too radicalized where you can't. It gets so small that your group is so teeny. It's so fringe that you can't. If someone has any slight difference to you, then automatically, oh, I can't be with that person. Well, then you're going to be real freaking lonely. The more you radicalize yourself out into these groups. And then I think that's why people get so lonely, or they just say, screw it, I'm going to just do my own thing. I'm going to stay in my basement, play video games, screw the world.
Well, you said something a second ago talking about looking for the positive. I think we do this to ourselves and we do this to each other, where we literally see the negative space instead of the positive space. Like we see what's not there
We're biased towards it.
instead of what is there. And I'm part of a bunch of trade groups, and one of them is this online digital course creator people is this group, and I found myself being like, well, I'm not like them because I do in-person stuff. So I've got a hybrid business model. And then I was like, I was just laughing as I started to be like, well, then I can't do this. And this doesn't apply to me.
There we go.
I started to throw up, barriers. And I was like, just chuckling. I was like, dude, so it has to be 100%. You can't, you can't have in-person relationships with people. And I was just thinking, I was like, it's so easy and so insidious how our definition of love and belonging is like we give ourselves and other people a purity test all the time.
That's a good way to put it. Purity test. Yeah. No one is pure. It's not a thing.
No, and but it's like unconscious, and we start to both disqualify ourselves and disqualify other people.
That's dangerous.
It is dangerous. We'll get into that. So let's talk about some of the mistakes that we make. And we just mentioned them, right? Like disqualifying ourselves, giving a purity test. And this is really a form of judgment. I know Brene Brown talks about this in one of her books. She's written, hundreds now, it feels like, but it's not Atlas of the Heart. It's much earlier than that. It's not Dare to Lead.
Daring Greatly. Gifts of Imperfection.
It's probably Daring Greatly. It's one of the earlier books that she had written, where she talks about her experience of this woman describing how superior a mom is, but because she was able to breastfeed for the entire 18 months or whatever. And it was, very difficult for Brene Brown to breastfeed for more than a few months, and she had to move to formula, whatever. I'm probably butchering the details of the story, but this woman had created a rift between them because she made a moral judgment about her choices and abilities and preferences and behavior that made her a better person or a superior mother, which is like a core identity, of course, of, Brene Brown and this other woman. So just through that side, like kind of a very casual conversation, she created a huge rift in their friendship. And I think that's a great example of that thing that we unconsciously do to ourselves and to other people, is we frame up the entire world with our values, our views, our experience, even like, oh, well, I found it really easy to learn how to ride a bike, so everyone does. And then because we create that as the normal and any deviation from that is abnormal, we start to build these rifts.
Yeah, ego does it. Yeah, she's a good person. I got to meet her once at a psych conference. She's really, really nice, and her presentation was amazing. It was early on in her career, I think. She did a presentation on shame versus guilt. I think that was her jam. Really good, and it kind of relates to what we're talking about. I was asking her some questions afterwards, because she was talking about how men, like women, will say, "I want you to be open, tell me all your feelings, be vulnerable," and then we do, and then the women kicks us in the balls for it, like, "But you're not doing anything about it, and why'd you share that?" And like, you're not you're not handling it well or whatever. And they give all this criticism. And that guy goes, well, then I will never open up ever again. And I was like, oh my God, that happens to me so often. So I went and asked her about it. And I was like, well, what do I do? And she's like, you just have to find someone who's done their work, find someone who's done their own therapy, knows what their attachment style is, know your attachment style. And it was like duh advice, but like it smacked me in the face. Like, oh yeah, I should probably do that. And that's been a lifelong work for me, healing my attachment style because of my upbringing. But it absolutely matters. And working with Connor Beaton and his men's retreat, doing his alliance and listening to his podcast, he had some good advice about that with men when you're being open and vulnerable. It's like a woman wants to know what's going on inside you because they want to know that you do so that they can feel safe. So if you'd say, oh, I'm just feeling a little irritable from the day, had a rough day, here's the things I'm doing to work on it. And you don't have to do anything. I just want to process. That's like Jedi mind tricks for relationships, because then the spouse can kind of go, oh, I don't have to be your mom. Fuck yeah. That's what I was afraid of. I just want to feel safe in this relationship. You know what's going on inside you. You've identified it. You can articulate it. You just want to talk, and I don't have to do anything with that. That's awesome. That's the move.
So you said a lot, and I want to back up and go through it piece by piece, because this very large point has cost me some important friendships because I didn't know because I wasn't able to deal with my own vulnerability, like you said. When people were vulnerable with me, I would push them, criticize them, want them to change because I was afraid of the emotions that they were sharing with me. Because I was afraid of my emotions.
Correct.
Yeah. And but when we don't know that,
Sure.
What we tell ourselves, what it feels like in that second, in that moment, is like, well, I'm just being real. My friend told me that he, is in a toxic relationship with his girlfriend. So I said, dump her. Okay, that may be the right answer. That's not the response
that he's looking for.
that a good friend has. You can end there, but the bridge is, tell me more about that.
Yeah.
What comes up for you?
What do you feel?
How long has this been going on? It's like, sit with them in that sensation for a second.
They don't want advice right away.
No one does. And I'm specifically thinking of an instance where I did this to a friend, it's like, yes, he was in a bad relationship because he was in a bad place for a bunch of reasons. But instead of revealing any of that stuff or getting to any of that stuff, I was just like, dude, why are you tolerating this? Dump your girlfriend and get on with it.
It's easy. Yeah.
And it cut our relationship off, and it kept us from, because I didn't know how to be vulnerable. I wasn't able to invest in the relationship with my vulnerability. And then he didn't feel safe anymore sharing with me what was going on.
Exact same scenario. Yeah.
So we end up having a less rewarding, less enriched friendship because of the fear that I have around difficult emotions. And that little exchange we're constantly doing, because sometimes when someone and this is another point of sensitivity, which I'm so glad you shared this experience with Brene Brown, because when people have a mild complaint and you try to fix it instead of empathizing, oh, this guy tried to take credit for my project at work or whatever. It's like something that seems sort of, for me, very innocuous and distant emotionally. That could be very emotionally triggering for that person. And that could have been a big share. And I would miss it, and I would be like, oh, fuck that guy, or whatever, right? And get on with it, because this conversation, I don't understand the context of.
Right.
And that what the person on the other side of that conversation is, I shared something important to me with Josh, and he didn't ask any questions. He just tried to tell me what to do. And now that's one less person I can talk to.
Feel shut down, or maybe shamed that I can't take that advice right now, or whatever.
And even if that's what he wants to do, or he has potentially he has a great strategy, but he wants to be reciprocated, and he wants to know that I'm an ally and that I see him as the good guy.
Yes. Then
Right.
you can get to advice once that happened. We're so prone to giving advice in this culture. I mean, look at social media. But in your intimate relationships, how many times does your partner come to you and you're like, well, just do that.
I'll do
Well,
you one
let's solve
better.
this.
I'll do you one better.
Or having a
How
competition.
about this, Miles, doctor? You give the advice because people come to you and ask for it. If you're listening to this podcast, just don't ever. Like, if you make an error on just not ever giving advice, that will probably heal so much of your relationships.
Oh, yeah.
And you can also still be real with someone.
Hmm.
Like someone like, so
You should be real.
telling telling somebody your perception of what's going on is not advice. It's just your observation.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself can be a sobering conversation with somebody else.
Once you've got to, oh, this person has my best interest. Once
right.
that's established, then they're more open to hearing that.
I had a friend who got married in the Army, and she was at the Defense Language Institute, and they call it the Defense Love Institute because
Classic, yeah.
because you're
surrounded
you're
with.
in Monterey, California, on the
dude.
beach. You're there for 18 months because you're studying a Category 4 language.
Should be in Alaska or something. That'd be
right? So you're in this romantic place, and you're there for a long, long time, and you're with other smart people who have the exact same personality type as you,
man.
and the same interests and the same job. So you immediately have rapport and communication and same language. And oh, by the way, you're 19 and lonely.
It's fucking Match.com in life.
Exactly, right? And so they say when you get to the DLI, there's a speech. They say, like, don't get married here. Like, if you think you're supposed to be with this person, give it time.
Good advice.
And they say that it's like, of course you can get married, you can do whatever you want, you're free. But if you want to be stationed together and you want to and you're trying to figure out how to stay together forever, realize you're 19. Right? Like you're so young. And all the people who are in their 30s, because you enlist late in their mid 20s or whatever,
they're
you
not
already
in their
get
heads.
it. You
They're not
already
in their, yeah. All the 18-year-olds are like, I know everything. Fuck off.
But my friend was sharing her experience of getting married, and I said, "Didn't you hear the DLI speech?" And she's like, "No, no one ever told me that." And they weren't a good fit, her and her husband, and no one ever told me that either. Like after we got divorced, everyone was like, "Yeah, that guy sucked," and it's like, but no one had the presence of mind to say, like, "Hey, you guys aren't good for each other." Like I observe your behavior get worse when you're around each other more. And so the lesson I took from that is you could be a person, you don't have to give someone advice like break up with the girl, do this, do that. Just state your observation. Like you get really anxious when you're around this other person, or you drink a lot when your girlfriend's around, or
Bad sign.
yeah. Just those observations, people don't know that. And you could be the only person in their life that's being honest with them and not trying to manipulate them or tell them what to do. It's like you could say like, hey, listen, you do whatever you want, but you're objectively making worse decisions because of this person. And you could continue to do that if that makes you happy. I don't but from what you're telling me and what I'm observing, it actually is making your life worse. Mm-hmm. And you may be the only you may have a captive audience if you, as like Miles says, you were able to build rapport and empathize with that person without giving advice.
Mm-hmm. It's easy to give advice. We want to help, but that's like, let it sit. Just relate, let them process. I mean, you were talking about what happens in here in therapy, and like, that's it. I'm not in the advice giving business. I'm in the empowerment business. If I give someone advice, I kind of disempower them because it's like, well, then I'm giving them the power that they think they're supposed to do. And it's like, maybe not true for them. Later on, like if they're directly asking, or I might ask, oh, why do you want to know? Or why do you think I have, like, what answer do you think I'm going to give you? Put it back to the fucking classic therapist answer a question with a question, but it works.
Well, it works because it's self-attribution.
Yeah.
If you're flipping a coin and you're hoping for one answer, you know what you actually want.
Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah. Maybe I should use that more often.
So we got that when someone is sharing, we want to be present with them so that we don't create unnecessary rifts by judging or criticizing we're ignoring something that might be important to them. And most importantly, not advice giving, but just being a good friend. So notice we're already halfway there if we're showing up as a friend that we would like to have for our own lives, which is, most of the characteristics that we're talking about right now are people that you would want to be around. So let's go into some your personal definitions of friendship. And Miles, you can start if you have something clinical or personal, something that you really like.
Sure. I mean, you've written out the way.
Yeah, I've got a couple definitions.
Yours are similar. I call it the circle of trust, and I think of like 3 circles. The inner circle is your close friends, your close relationships, family members, intimate partners, things like that. People you really trust, you really know well, they know you well. And then outside that is people that are kind of half in, half out, like maybe coworkers that you have a little bit of a relationship with, you might do happy hour with or whatever, but you don't really hang out that often and you don't tell them so much that the conversations of depth aren't happening that much. That's more the inner circle. And the outside is like, oh, that's an acquaintance, the person at the coffee shop you exchange pleasantries with and you know a little bit about. Like we're at Pete's today and what was her name?
Jenna.
She has the 32 pieces of flair. Like you're good at doing that with the people at the coffee shops or restaurants. That's a solid acquaintance. You're pushing onto maybe the peer because you're having a little more conversations of depth. But I think of it as like a circle of 3 circles, and 1, 2, and 3, and people can move in and out of those depending on how the relationship goes. And that's kind of defined by both you guys, but more so for yourself. Like when we wake up every day, the relationships are like a new evaluation of what are we doing. A renegotiation happens, even in your intimate relationship. Whether you know it or not, you're still waking up and consciously or not, hopefully consciously saying, this is how we're defining our relationship. These are the values and things we stand by. These are the no-goes and goes for us. And you wake up and kind of go, we're doing that again today for 24 hours, right? Yep. That's the inner circle. And I guess you're kind of doing that with all of them in a way, but it's most important in the middle. So that's kind of the way I look at my relationships. And the way you wrote it is quite similar. So maybe it's a good segue to how you define yours.
Well, I'm borrowing heavily from the work of others. My I think the most important 2 definite parts of the definition are someone who, for me, a friend is someone who speaks to the person that I could be, my potential, more than the person that I am currently. And that implies that they have a large vision for you and they see you as the powerful creator that you are, and they speak to that person. And I've been extremely blessed with friends who did that from the get. And so I know what it feels like to be on the receiving end of that. And it's that sense of safety of not having to prove yourself.
That's it. It's the safety and trust
is created really quickly. And in the same with their relationships, typically, if trust is violated, it's repaired really quickly.
Nice one.
And so shout out to Dr. Victoria Prescott Mattingly, who just lived this way since I met her. She was a psychology major, became an industrial organizational psychologist,
Cool.
written some books.
Mm-hmm.
She's just very, very talented, and she just always operated that way.
This is one of your friends?
Yeah, one of my friends. So I borrowed her car to go to Canada one time, and I took a girl up there. Very nice. I was going up to just get away from life for a couple of days, and she let me borrow her car. And then she found out that I took someone else, and she was like, I'm okay with it, but just let me know what you're doing so I don't feel like you're hiding things from me when you're asking for help or things like that.
I love that.
And just like disappointment expressed, request initiated, right? And then relationship repaired.
High level adulting.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's just an amazing person. And a lot of my friends are just the top tier quality individuals. And what I mean by that is not some external judgment, but just people who are generous, kind, patient, just loving people. And because of that, I didn't have, I didn't have, this experience that, well, we'll get to an experience a lot of people have about how successful can I be without losing my friends, because this is a thing that people voice sometimes just in very small ways. But so my definition of a friend is somebody who speaks to you as though you are living up to your potential, and that makes you more likely to, makes me more likely to.
Absolutely.
And my friendship tiers go from acquaintance to peer collaborator, uh, based on how much rapport we have and commonality of time and interests. Um, and then the next tier up from that is family, where, you know, family you don't even have to like, but you love them. People get on your nerves. You may not want to be around them, but you will still support them, and you're not going to throw them under the bus.
Could, in your definition, family move to circle 2 in my world? Because I think for some people, I might put there. It's like, I don't know if I trust you that much, but your blood. Does that make sense? But for some people, I mean, not me specifically, but some people that I work with, they need some clear boundaries around family members that probably aren't healthy. So they might move them to circle 2, like trust but verify kind of a thing.
Well, fully. So when I say family, this is a great point. My family is, God, how do I put it? Let's call it high needs.
Yeah. Okay.
My family is, made up of people who were either neither emotionally independent or financially independent. So they were very, by nature, just unstable. So I don't spend a ton of time with my family, and kind of what you said, I keep them at arm's length and have a good strong. I love them, but I don't engage with them in a familial way. And I think the way that I'm talking about family are when I consider the people that like have really supported me through tough times, people who I've lived on their couches.
They don't have to be blood to be
No.
family. Yeah, that's okay. That's what I was kind of.
It's just a chosen family.
Chosen. I like that. Yeah.
Chosen family.
Yeah.
That's right. My buddy Adrian, when I lived with him when I was in high school, Adrian and Ron and, my neighbor Alyssa, we were family. Like we lived from my senior year, my junior year, senior year, lived in this apartment complex where it was like everybody worked. We were very communal. We would like hang out in the evenings and like drink beer and play cards. And then some people would work swing shift or night shift, day shift. We would go, a couple of days without seeing each other. But when I was home on leave, I didn't go back to my family. I went to them.
That says something.
And then I remember Adrian just like threw me the keys to his truck and he's like, "Hey, you got people to visit. Just, make sure it's got gas in it when you give it back to me." And like,
pretty trusting.
Yeah, pretty trusting. Family. Like that's what I mean by family, is people who just take care of you. And I've just been blessed to be surrounded by people like that. And at my best, I do show up like that for other people. And at my worst, well, we got time for those stories too. So family is like, it's another tier of like the people who bail you out of big problems and support you and love you and show up for you in ways that you can't show up for yourself, but doesn't mean you're blood.
It's good delineation. That doesn't have to be, because some people get tripped up on that. Well, it's blood. I have to keep them in the first circle or whatever. Well, that could be unhealthy depending on what's going on. Abusive relationships.
Yeah, that's right. And what will I say? I'll say that, yeah. So if you have those definitions of friends, then you're already in a good spot, because you know who you're trying to show up as, and you know what you're looking for. And in fun, this is a good. We'll talk about vulnerability here and the generation of a new friendship. Because Miles and I started hanging out, well, probably a month before we started the podcast?
Maybe more.
Yeah. Well, we would see each other in the gym.
Yeah.
And then we started talking about health and fitness and life, and,
we thought we should just record our conversations. We should do a podcast. Okay.
Yeah, totally. But we both exercised a couple of important traits and skills. And one is this is one that coaches and experts often forget. I'm talking about me, is being vulnerable in our area of expertise. So Miles had some tools and some strategies and some things he was using that I'd never heard before. And I knew of, like, getting blood panels done, off the shelf and doing secondary market things. But you turned me on to some resources. And instead of going like, oh, I already know that, I got more curious. And I was like, oh, tell me more about that. Mm-hmm. And so I started to do some research, and I tried some things out for myself, and it was really helpful. And I was able to leverage that for myself, my health, and my clients.
Was it the electroshock therapy advice I gave you?
No, and it wasn't the erythromycin. It was, I think it was Inside Tracker.
Inside Tracker, yeah, that's a great one. Yeah.
Inside Tracker was a great tool.
We'd love for them to support this podcast one day, by the way. If you're listening, Inside Tracker.
Yeah, very, very good. We could definitely give you, we have sponsored links. We could give you a break on your blood work. But I was open to getting new information about something, a health, a topic that I kind of knew a little bit about, but I was ready and I was willing to ask questions and be vulnerable and be coached. And
not that I was trying to coach you, but I was just sharing and you were interested.
Yeah. And so I think that that's a step in the right direction of letting somebody else influence you.
Yeah.
Right.
We need to be influenced.
But you say that, and a lot of people, they say, I already know that, or I tried that and it didn't work.
I've tried everything.
Yeah. Well, they'll have stories about why they can't be open, and it'll be logical. It won't be emotional. It'll be like, no. That doesn't work for me. So you gave me some ideas. I used them. I valued them, and that built a steeper, more strong path between our houses. And we just furthered the conversation that got more enriched, and we're like, hey, we should probably talk about some of this stuff on the podcast. And it was your idea to do a podcast. That wasn't my idea. So it's fun, and we're both growing because of it. But I'm sharing this because it's not like you have to have all of the assets and resources and ideas, and you have to lead. Sometimes you have to follow. And I think a lot of people miss that part of like, oh, well, I don't want to have to come up with the pickup basketball game for the group. It's like, let someone else do it. Mm-hmm. Like, show up though, but you have to show up to what other people are. You have to be authentic and be present and really allow yourself to participate fully. And that is that's the person that is going to find it more easy, will create authentic relationships more easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You've entered my circle of trust in the first circle because I've let you borrow 2 of my books. I don't let people borrow books because they don't come back. You brought one of them back already. Yeah. So that's a sign. If you're in a relationship with me and you ask for a borrow book, if I say yes, I trust you. If I say, I might never see that again, I generally don't do that because they don't come back usually. They never come back.
That's why I loan books out, because I don't want them anymore.
You're the opposite. I hoard them.
I just give them now. I'm like, you should read this. And they're like, oh, well, should I? Nah, whatever. So yeah, so that our friendship and this podcast is a real life demonstration of these in action. And through in the last few months, we've both been able to share with each other what's going on in our lives and be vulnerable and be real in ways that have enriched our friendship. And none of our back and forth is ever like, oh, you should do this. Like, oh, yeah, here's how you fix that, or whatever. Like,
Bro, why are you doing that, man?
Yeah, stop being a pussy.
bro science advice. So.
Yeah, judgment, criticism, cajoling, ego racing. The ego racing part, I think, especially with men, but with anybody, is like, can you keep up with me on this? And that could be like, lift as much weight as me, or drink as much as me if it's something bad or toxic, or gamble as much as me, or have a more expensive car or watch or whatever it is. You can get caught up in that, and I have been caught up in all of those, and to some degree.
You define that as ego racing.
Yeah, I call it ego racing, but it's because it's like it's competition, but not so competition, it should makes everyone better.
Yes.
So if we're playing one-on-one basketball and we start to keep score, now all of a sudden you're going to try and win. Now you may take shots that you normally wouldn't. You may take 10% more speed and get a little bit more aggressive, put a shoulder into me. That's that's called playing basketball. Yeah. Right? And all of a sudden now I have to play better. Yeah. to stay in the game and not get blown out, and I want to compete.
And you're both learning and growing.
Yeah, we're both getting better.
It's the same in jiu-jitsu and in the samurai times. If you didn't give 100%, it was like disrespect to that partner, right? Because you both should go as much as you can so you can learn. If you're playing down, like you're sort of disrespecting your training partner a little bit. You want them to learn. And you want to train at upper belts to make sure you grow too. You can't just tap out white belts all day long. You're never going to learn. And this goes to relationships too. And I think they called it this in one of my training programs: relationships as dojo. You want to be with someone that is kind of challenging you, and you're kind of challenging them. It's like that Goldilocks zone where you don't always have the power. Sometimes you get into relationships where you're willing to cede that power in codependent relationship, be told what to do because you don't have to think. And then the person with the power is like, cool, I can just dominate you. But nobody's really growing. But if you're both sharing that power, challenging each other, giving 100%, you're going to grow together. So relationship as training or dojo shows up in this way as well.
So this is, I love that you went there with that, because when you said I have to give 100% to not disrespect this other person. Yeah, if you're a black belt, you don't want to give 100% because your white belt's not going to get anything from just getting murdered.
No, and the black belt's probably going to get hurt because the white belt's spazzing the fuck out.
But this is like in Muay Thai, they say if you have slightly superior skill, then just put enough pressure on the other person where they can be successful, but only if they try.
I like that.
Like you're throwing the jab at their chin, mm-hmm. and if they don't move, they're taking a jab in the chin. Mm-hmm. So if they have a shoulder, bob, or they have they can move their hand, but if they don't do anything, they're getting hit.
A little love tap.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
But you're not knocking them out.
And they have to try to be successful. But if you go 3 levels up, you're just blasting them.
Yeah, they're not gonna learn shit. They're gonna come back.
I love the Muay Thai. They call it pain and compliance.
Pain and compliance, yeah, it's same in jiu-jitsu. Yeah.
Just like if you will learn how to guard your head, yeah. or you will get knocked out.
You'll learn how to get off the X. Don't be there next time.
So the keeping them successful. So I'll give you an example of power imbalance that is really fun. Me and my buddy Joe Wilson. Most of my friends are, what is it called when you have a successful career? You have money. Okay. Most of my friends have some money.
What's that thing that we need? Yeah. Small topic.
They when things get bad, they don't couch surf on other people's couches like me. So my buddy Joe Wilson is more financially successful than me, and he reminds me and his other friends that not to try and keep up with him on what he's doing, because
playing a different game.
And he's like, your job isn't to have 4 cars and travel the world and do all this stuff. Your job is to be successful at what you're trying to be successful at. And I really appreciate his influence. He's a good role model in that way, because he's happy and successful, and it isn't competing egoically he's got fancy tastes, but
Nothing wrong with that.
yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. But he's not competing egoically with us. We're not ego racing. And on the flip side, Joe, I love you, but you know, you've got some physical ailments. And
So you're more rich in this department.
yeah. So in health, you know, both, I think like, one, it's my whole career. Right. And two, I have just had more time in the saddle and getting the reps in the gym and whatever. But when we're hanging out, we also don't compete on that either. Like we're like, you know, he's teaching me things and I'm teaching him things, and it's not, but it's that both like we're trying to get better,
Yeah.
not trying to outdo each other.
Not one up. Yeah.
Right. And it's that's a like a healthy masculine relationship where it's like we challenge each other, but not to try to submit the other person.
Dominate. Yeah.
So ego, no, ego racing, is a problem, and sometimes we fall in that consciously or unconsciously. And I think for me, I've only recently noticed when I'm comparing myself to other people, and that I'm allowing it to affect my behavior. Where it's like, oh, I'm going to change my training program so that I can X. I'm like, no, everything's working right now. Don't do anything differently. Let it ride. Like, let the gains come.
Let it play out.
Let it play out. Like, play your game, play my game. And then I think that the final piece of like sabotaging friendships is just trying to manage their perception of us. And this can be like going ego down or ego up. So I had a friend who worked out at the gym that I used to run called Training for Warriors. We would sprint every week. We would sprint out on the street, rain or shine, snow, sleet, didn't matter. We had sprint days, and everyone was doing it. And so we'd have foot races, and people got really into it. And she got into this. She was fast, and this other woman was fast, and they raced each other, and it was close. And my friend Adina beat her, and she said, I hope that you'll race me again, because I have this story that if I win, that you won't want to play anymore. And she said that out loud, which is which was, I was so impressed by, because a lot of people have that experience of not their friends changing the dynamic of the relationship when one person outdoes the other in some way, small or big, like that threatens the ego of the other person. And somewhere along the way, I think as kids, we learn that we have to play small in order to keep our relationships intact. And she said that out loud, and I was so impressed with her. I gave her a hug. And I say this out loud in the microphone because it's been said on like social media, and I think if you don't watch these feeds, then you might be missing it. But your best friends are the people that show up for you when your life is shit, as I've had many of those. And when things go really, really well, those people are rooting for you to even outdo them. You know, like when you're shining, those people who are your really good friends want you to shine even more. And they see the larger vision, and they're like, you haven't reached the mountaintop yet. Keep going. And we want to be around those people, because then we feel safe to excel. And we're not managing their perception of us or trying to be small for some reason. And it's something that I've experienced, and I've probably been irritated by other people's success. Most of my But in financial realm, most of my friends are more successful than me, objectively in every measure. So I'm pretty used to rooting for people who are doing better than me.
That's also good, because they'll help pull you up, right? You surround yourself with people where you want to be.
Yeah. Well, yes. And I think that's another secret too, is because I am in the conversation with people who are doing much better than me. It's normal. It's okay. It's okay to not struggle with money. It's okay to be wildly successful and have a profitable business. That's what America's about.
Yeah, it's inspirational. I mean, look where we live too. We're in the richest city in the whole freaking state. And a lot of people come into our gym are millionaires and famous people and famous doctors. It's inspirational. And you could knock yourself down and say, "Oh, I suck" compared to them, but why not just be inspired by that? Like, oh, I could do a version of that, and let's have conversations with these guys. And how'd you get there? And like be influenced. What a great place to go do that, and we get to do that, which is really cool.
That's right. And this problem that I've never had is they say never be the smartest person in the room. That's never been a problem. I've never been in danger of being the smartest person in the room.
What's that saying? If you don't know who the smartest person in the room is, it's you. Something like that.
I thought it's not you.
It's not you.
I think, but there are people who want their big fish in a small pond syndrome. They don't like being the person to ask questions, and they don't like being the person to not know. And I've rarely spent time with people who are not in some capacity teaching me something.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
It's a thing. Have you ever experienced any of that in a friendship where you were trying to play big or small?
Yeah, definitely. It's usually play small, which is, you have like this ego curve on the far right is like grandiosity and far left is nihilism. If you think about it, it's all ego. It's all false self-construct, and some people have to overcompensate to do that, and that's going into the sort of narcissistic path. And other people play less, and that's sort of nihilistic or less than, or even up to suicidal ideation. Like something's up, there's a myriad of reasons for that, but a lot of it's false beliefs, ego, things like that. And I think I learned from my attachment wounds that I had that I was too much. I can't share my thoughts and feelings, or else these parentals will distance themselves, which probably wasn't happening, but any kid will blame themselves for their parents. It's just the way it is. And so I typically play small in order not to come off as too much. Like I can't sound smart, or I can't show them this. I can't outdo them. Even in jiu-jitsu, sometimes I'll feel bad, like if I win. So I'll just start laughing or whatever, just to make it light, rather than like, oh, this isn't really a serious competition. I'll just kind of back it off, or not even go there knowing I'll probably lose. That's just, don't have the experience of losing or winning. It's like, oh, I'm really hosing myself in both departments here. Sure, I played the overcompensation side from time to time, but it usually goes into the play less than, don't be seen, fly under the radar crap. That, and I think that stems from attachment wounds. But that doesn't serve anybody. It doesn't serve a training partner in life or in jiu-jitsu. It doesn't serve me. It's dumb. It's hurtful to me, to myself, to everybody. So if you're playing the grandiosity game or the nihilistic game, you just stop playing those games. Like, you don't have to do that. Just be genuine, be influenced, be inspired, grow, show yourself you've got natural gifts. I've got a couple of patients who are in Mensa, super smart, and they had the same experience. Like in school, they were so smart, they were like, "Oh, you're a nerd," so they would intentionally tank their grades so they could be cool. Like now I fit in, but dude, you're a genius, and now you can't go to college. Like you're getting C's. Like you shouldn't be doing that. But that's kind of what society teaches sometimes. So, or if you think of like the super attractive person, like typically like stereotypical hot blonde, like you might not think they have a hard life, but think about that. Like you're objectified all the time. You have to be that all the time, or else you might be nothing, in their mind.
Well, I heard a relationship expert talk about that. I'm going to address both those things you shared, which are fascinating: the playing down and the burden of beauty. That there was I get the coolest feeds. I wish everyone could have my news feed, because I get some fun stuff. This woman was talking about,
got a good algorithm going.
Why? Yeah, I think I have a good one. This woman was talking about why very attractive women have problems dating, and why they have toxic relationships with men. And she was saying that imagine that in every career you ever had, your boss is trying to sleep with you, your coworker's trying to sleep with you,
Mm-hmm.
and they're married, and they're trying to transact all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you think your perception of reality is that, oh, men are easily manipulated. Men are they're untrustworthy, they're short-sighted, right? And because you're confronted with all this male weakness all the time,
Mhm.
and no one's treating you like a person and seeing your skills and dreams and your passion and your what you have to give. And so then you have all these superficial relationships that you hate, right? And you think that's what life is, because your algorithm is
Yeah, it's that.
is cut.
Mhm.
And I thought that was a very good observation to your second point, or first point rather, the concept of um, um, showing up authentically and trying as hard as you can, or doing your best in every context. The the ability to shift context and like say like um so in health, my point is that it's a difficult skill to be able to know that your context has shifted in the same day, when you go from maybe this office to your therapist's office now, that where you're asking for help, and then going to your home where you are a peer collaborating with your wife, and then talking to your kid who now you are a superior to.
A lot of context
A lot of
switching.
context switching,
It's
right?
taxing.
And the if I'm honest, there's only a couple of conversations in the week where I am the end all be all subject matter expert. And it's usually when I'm at work having one very narrow set of conversations around body transformation or something like that.
Mhm.
And inside of that conversation, I seem like a genius because I have been in that conversation for 20 years. And then every other conversation, sometimes I think I'm still supposed to have that kind of competency.
Mm.
And I forget that I actually don't know what I'm talking about, or not to the degree that I do. Like I'm, and here's the catch. I'm also the most humble when I'm in talking about health, because I know what I don't know and I'm not certain.
Mhm.
Whereas in these other areas where I feel a little more fragile,
You want certainty.
I want certainty, and I don't feel the trust
Mhm.
that I'm going to come to the right answer
Mhm.
and that it's all going to work out. So the context shifting, it makes it more difficult to be humble and get your ego out of the way. And this, you already mentioned it, so I think we should hop into like the impact that your attachment style and your upbringing and your how you relate to your loved ones, maybe when your guardians when you were a kid, your mom, potentially your mom and dad, or other people, how that shapes your attachment style, and then how that impacts all of these things that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's huge. It's really underrated. I've always thought it was sort of a foundational piece to what we do in psychotherapy. And it's sort of making a resurgence. Both my master's paper and dissertation involved attachment theory in it. And I'm just continually wanting to learn more and more and more. So without risking going into a 3-hour conversation about this, which we could, I'll just give a short version. Attachment theory just means the way you attach to your primary caregivers from in utero to when you're 12, 13, 14, 15. And it's very, very crucial in utero to age, I don't know, 4, probably the most crucial. You want to be what's called having a secure attachment style, meaning I can tolerate intimacy and I can also tolerate somebody leaving me. Like I'll be sad about it and have a normal grief, but I'll move on and know that I can meet other people. Or I can let people in and then they can love me and I can love them and I can tolerate that. If that gets disrupted through abuse or neglect, you either move into one of the 3 typical insecure attachment styles, which is the anxious, the avoidant, or the disorganized. Disorganized has also been called like the anxious avoidant or fearful avoidant. It's kind of maybe a blend of the anxious and the avoidant. That's lucky me, the one that I developed. It's a little more dicey. Anxious is the fear of abandonment one. So I need to control outcomes, always texting, where are you? You can't leave me. You can't have other relationships. You always got to be reassuring me that you're not going to leave. Avoidance, like, screw the world. I'm putting walls up. You can't get too close and I'm just going to do my own thing. I don't need anybody. These are extreme examples. And then the disorganized one is like a blend of the both. Like you kind of hot and cold. Like you really want relationships and you let people into a certain point and they get too close. You're like, nah, just too much. And you back off. And then you see them leaving. Like, well, on second thought, come back here. It's like this push pull. I had that a lot growing up with relationships. I'd want to be in them. Someone started to love me and go, oh, yeah, they're not the right one. They have this one flaw over here. I can't be with you. And then they go, well, fine, screw you. And they'd leave. I go, but don't leave me. And I'd be like, wait a second here. Like 5 minutes ago, I didn't want to be with this person. And now I can't live without him. And that was my first clue to like, something's not right. I should probably do more therapy around this. That's a doozy of an attachment style. I think pros and cons to all of them. You want to get to secure, and through therapy and other methods you can get there. But it always seems like the anxious and the avoidance get attracted to each other because they sort of unconsciously perceive what they have or don't have in the other relationship. Like the anxious person wants intimacy, and they go, "Oh, that." Or I mean, the avoidant person wants intimacy, and they see the anxious person being able to be open and loving and whatever. I can't. What kind of words do I want to put to it? Sort of that compassionate ability to do relationship, and the anxious person sees the avoidant one saying, "Oh, that person's got stability, strength. They know what they're doing. They'll be good for me," and they kind of mystically find each other. But those attachment styles really do battle because the anxious person's coming on strong, hard in the paint with the feelings, and the one's going, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, too much." And there's this push pull, and then it generally doesn't work out so well. Or sometimes the same styles get together, two avoidance, but then there's no closeness, or two anxious people and do this like caretaking Olympics. I caretake you, so I can feel safe in this relationship. If I know you're good, then I'm safe. It's sort of like replication of your childhood. And then they're all like trying to out caretake each other, and it doesn't work. Then you have the disorganized one, which is a little more confusing. I think that one's a little bit more rare, but you want to get to secure base, and that through therapy, through practicing your relationships, and we'll probably go into a little bit on how to do that. You can get to a more secure relationship, so with friends and with your intimate partners, and it really shows up and gets triggered in your closest relationships because that triggers intimacy, which is the next closest thing to the one you had with your parents. That's the template you were given. So if you had abuse, neglect, that's those fears resurface in intimate relationships. Are you going to leave me? Can I feel safe? And be abused? Am I going to be manipulated? All those trauma responses get kicked back up. You wanted to say something?
You shared a lot. And I'm glad you tied it to the friendship thing, because I think a lot of times when people think about attachment style, they think of romantic relationships or familiar relationships. They don't think about this is the way we treat our friends.
Yeah, it shows up kind of in all relationships, but it really gets kicked up in the closest relationships. And usually your intimate one is the closest.
I just remember I had a lot of friendships in my 20s that were disorganized, and that people would be very vulnerable. I wouldn't be as vulnerable. But even then, I had some very intuitive friends who would try and like coax me out of it. And they would even say, "Are you thinking this or feeling this?" And I would lie. And because I was afraid of being seen. And that was obviously a barrier to our friendship, which created all these things that we just talked about and you shared. But I also want to talk about the anxious and the avoidant a little bit more, because in that an example I think that most people can think about is like an emotionally distant guy is the avoidant one, and the anxious person is a woman, stereotypically, who is emotionally available, but the guy isn't emotionally available. But curiously, the anxious attachment style person didn't find a secure attachment style person who was balanced.
Yeah, they don't know what it looks like.
Yeah, they found the puzzle piece hand neurosis. But the question I had for you is, so in all these drama evolutions that happen when you get these people together, anxious to avoidant, avoidant, anxious, or anyone in a disorganized attachment style, like I find friendships fascinating. And there's a lot of, I'm, um, I have very few rules when it comes to friendships. I think it's because, well, who knows what it is, maybe moving around a lot.
Mm.
And like I just lost a lot of friends fast because I was moving. And then in the army, you're constantly changing duty stations. So you build these really close relationships. And then,
Never seen me again.
then you don't, you see them again a couple years later, or 5 years later, 10 years later, and then you connect. But I don't have a lot of requirements for friendships. And I was recently, I've had a couple of friends who had this fun requirement, and I'm not judging it. I'm just a genuine curiosity if you've seen these, where it's like, if I wanted to hang out with a friend that the other person introduced me to, I had to get permission
Yeah.
from the middle friend, the first friend,
Loyalty.
to be able to do that. And it is an example of loyalty, I think. And I did it because I want to be loyal, I guess, and make people um feel safe, I guess. But I was curious because it's not something that I've ever, my hope is that the people that I introduce each other can become friends, and it's not something that I had ever required. But you said it was, how did they know to do that? That is that, did I miss that part in school when they talked about, um, you know, um, being overtly communicative about friendships that are developing?
They don't talk about this in school. They should. They
Yeah.
should start. They should really bring this in, and like how to do money. Like this is a big ball drop with the public education system. If they started talking about this early on, or even in high school or even college, even if you weren't studying psychology, it would be a big service. So it's not like maybe you were doing that one loyalty, but also out of fear. If you didn't tell the other person, then that person would be miffed and they would leave you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
It's an abandonment fear. It could be a mishmash of good and bad here, quote unquote, good and bad. Where did was that sort of a replication of your upbringing? Did you have to do that with your parents, with your immediate family?
Oh no, I talking about communicating.
No, just this example of like
Oh no, though that
loyalty.
was I had a friend. I've had a couple of friends who wanted me to communicate with them before I communicated with their other friends that I introduced them to.
Oh, it was their
It
request.
was their request. Yeah.
Interesting. So it might have been about their control of the relationship and
Yeah.
what that looks like. Yeah, that they could have their own insecure styles.
Well, I mean, I think, first of all, I'm insecure too. I think we all have insecurities.
For sure.
It's also, but just to point out, it's a thing I hear friends talking about that I'm not involved with, like in other friend groups, and I'm just thinking about this sense of, I guess, it's a fear of abandonment, right? If Miles is hanging out with Grant and I'm not there, they're abandoning me, and their friendship now is stronger than my friendship with Miles.
That's exactly it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's a fear of abandonment. And the avoidant would be like, well, screw those guys. Never talk to them again. Put a wall up. Oh, he's talking to that guy. And before I feel that threat of loss, I'll be like, just shut it down. No, I'm gone. Cut my losses when there aren't any losses.
No,
But it's a great adaptive mechanism from when you're a kid. Like if you had I felt really smothered by my mom after the divorce, and I felt like an autonomy threat, so that there was the wall, there's the avoidant. Like, you're getting too close. I feel manipulated. I feel like I can't have a self, so I need to guard when someone gets too close. And then having my dad, when he left the house, was sort of that abandonment feeling, like, come back. I only get to see you twice a month. Like, every time you come, it's great. And then you leave. Like, I see him on a Saturday and Sundays I fucking dreaded. It's like I had to go back to my mom's to feel smothered, and I missed the shit out of my dad. And that's that push-pull. So that's why I developed the disorganized one. It wasn't consistent. It got some hot, got some cold. Really confusing. As a parent, you want to be consistent, and you're not going to get it 100% right, but you want to show up consistently. You want to be, oh, you're upset. I will soothe you and help you. You can borrow my nervous system. We're good. And now I encourage you to go back out into the world. And you can do it. You can do it. And if you're hurt, come back. Oh, I got you. It's like encouragement and then soothing, encouragement and soothing. If you got, that shouldn't bother you. Just go back out there and whatever. That's going to set up an avoidant one. Or, oh yeah, the world's an unsafe place. I got you. You don't have to go anywhere, and we'll take care of all your needs. Now you got the 40-year-old in the parents' basement that won't leave the house because they're scared of the fucking world because you set them up that way.
Yeah, I um I think everybody, we've all had our issues with our parents, but I think one of the things that I am grateful for with my upbringing is my parents never had anything to offer me to stay entangled. And because of that, I didn't have to filter what I wanted through what they wanted. And there's a lot of people who their parents are like paying for their Uber or paying for their car or paying for their medical school or whatever it is. And they have these entanglements they're manipulated with money or tears about where they go to church or what they do. And it's like if they have to fight for that autonomy you're talking about. And I'm, you know, I didn't have to struggle with any of that. So I have a different sense of what what my identity comes from, where it comes from, and how to get it. So in a lot of ways, those this sort of era of parenting is foreign to me, and grateful because I'm kind of a um, I don't know if this is from, I'm sure it's from the factory and a little bit of nurture too, but I'm a very emotional person and I'm probably pretty easy to manipulate. Like if life had been comfortable for me, I think I probably would have been really easy to convince to do whatever the people who love me wanted me to do. Mm. But because it was more like being set on fire, I got moving fast, and I'm grateful for that. Um, because being loved is, I think that maybe that's a symptom of enmeshment. Enmeshment is the breaking down of boundaries between guardian and child, usually
Fusion.
Fusion of identities. So I was enmeshed early on with my mom, and like being around people who really love you, whether they're close friends, like I've been lucky to have, it's so difficult for me to get away from the positive attention of others. Um, up until like my early 30s and up until just a few years ago, you'd kind of have to shoo me out of the house if I was hanging out with my friends, like, and we would just be drinking wine until midnight or whatever. I would just crash on the couch or, stay the night, or it's like being around people with a good conversation who appreciate me and I appreciate them. Like I'm quite attached in that way. So if I were raised in a different environment, I think I could have been easily one of those people who went to medical school and didn't want to be a doctor, or
because your dad said you should go.
Because someone said that, yeah, or I wanted to make mom happy, so I did this. Luckily, nothing could make my mom happy. So,
but there's also a price for that one too.
I asked you a couple of minutes ago, how do you know where you belong? And did you have an answer?
Well, flesh that question out. What do you mean?
So, one of the things that is very common, people of our age, and I think in going through this existential crisis or figuring out what their passion is and their ikigai purpose in life, they feel a lack of belonging in a way that I think what they mean is like, what team do I play for? Where are my people who are moving the ball forward in the game that I care about? And I was in a coaching session where I wasn't being coached, but this coach is just talking to the group, and he asked the question, how do you know where you belong? Because one of the students was like, I don't feel like I belong anywhere. And he posed the question, well, how do you know where you belong? And there's silence from the group.
A lot of people will probably get that blank stare. Yeah.
And his answer is where you show up.
Like as your more authentic self.
Dramatic pause. Okay, sure. Now this one is going to, I'm still, this is evolving for me, but I think about my experience in the Army. It became my authentic self, but my identity completely shifted specifically when I was in airborne school. Okay, not completely shifted because pieces of it were there, but it all came together. My personality really evolved out of airborne school. It was like a coming of age, rite of passage thing. And there was a lot of structure, and I was literally wore the uniform, right? So you put on something. And so I was wearing clothes that I didn't, that I felt out of place wearing. I laced up boots I didn't want to put on. I did something that was terrifying to me that I thought I was going to die. And in doing something that was wholly uncomfortable, I then was a part of something that I found my belonging in a place that I didn't know existed. And so that's like it's really easy. Like you say ready made, right? Because it's like you put on, everyone wears the U.S. Army. Everyone has the flag.
It's a gang.
It's a global gang. Everyone has the colors. But I think that in this particular group that was posed that question to, it was the online teachers, course creators, coaches. And it's like, you showed up here with something motivating you to share with the world. That's enough. Like whatever you came with is enough. Now, our egos will say, well, so-and-so is doing $100,000 a month in business, and I haven't even figured out what I'm teaching yet.
The comparison game.
But we're on the same team, right? And I showed up there for a purpose, right? And I believe spiritually that you're never anywhere by accident. So I took that immediately and brought it into my sense of, or my definition of love and belonging, which is, where are you showing up, and showing up with something to give and contribute, especially your presence, primarily your presence, but your experience, your knowledge, your wisdom, your passion, all those things. If you have that and you show up with that, you're in the right place. Now you may get nothing from it, or you may get punched in the mouth or choked out, depending on if you're on the jiu-jitsu mat or you're teaching. Or
you will get choked out.
Absolutely. But you still belong.
You belong. Yeah. You're part of the club. You met the terms and conditions. You blooded in.
That's it. And I think back to like the detached sense of community, like that I got from the Army, is like, you may only be in for 2 years, or 4 years or 30 or whatever it is. But like once you don the uniform, it's forever. And you just play your part when you have a part to play. What is the Pink Floyd lyric? You take a walk-on part in a war instead of the lead role in a cage. Mm-hmm. And so you play your part, whatever it is, big or small. Your ego cares a lot about whether or not that's a big or small role. But if you're in the right place and you're growing as a person and you're figuring out what you had to offer.
Yep. And good old attachment styles will show up there too. Like as you're saying this, I'm imagining the anxious style, like, well, I'm not even going to go be part of a group and show up because that's threatening to my intimacy. So I'll just be the lone wolf.
Avoidant?
Avoidant. Or avoidant, sorry, not anxious. Yeah. The avoidant style. Yeah. Or the anxious will show up and then try to manage relationships and fear of being abandoned by the whole group, perhaps, or start caretaking or whatever, These things slip in very
so
sneakily.
True. That's exactly right. My experience when I was in Arizona, that was me. And I felt the desire come up to like start caretaking. And I was just like, there's nothing to do here.
No.
And just be.
Who am I here? Not according to what those people think about me. Order of operations is me first, and then we take their opinions in. Wrong order of operations is I am myself according to the people outside of me first.
Yes. Your oxygen mask on first. I fully agree.
Yeah.
I fully agree. And what the people at that conference needed from me was a human.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. That's what we all wanted as a kid. Parents, show up as a human and don't abandon me and don't smother me. Just like I shut my pants and I'm hungry. Just take care of these needs. If we don't get those, then that stuff goes off the rail.
That's right. And we've all been in various spectrums, right? I've been an anxious friend who's needy. I've been the avoidant friend or partner who is unavailable. I've been the disorganized person who is extremely affectionate, and then when it gets real, extremely distant,
Hot and cold.
and everything in between. I've been competitive when I shouldn't have been, and I avoided competition and pressure when I probably shouldn't have. And all of those are okay as long as you actually take the lesson out of each of those experiences. It's like, oh, this is challenging to me for this reason. Ooh, I'm scared of not being the best in this conversation or this competition, or I don't feel like I'm enough. That one, I feel, I try to narrate when it comes up all the time. But if you're even having this conversation and you're listening to this podcast, you're probably on the right track for improving your romantic relationships and addressing some of the core trauma in your attachment style, which Miles ran through really fast and we never went back to, but let's slow it down just for the audience as we come to the end of this podcast. The attachment theory sources of anxious and avoidant
And disorganized.
the sources of those attachment styles were the 4 keystone pieces of trauma in a person's life, which he said from in utero to 15, or more dramatically from utero to age 4 or 5. And those are neglect, physical or mental abuse, abandonment, and enmeshment. Those are the 3 big ones, 4 big ones rather.
Those are 4 big ones.
Are the 4 biggest ones. And then there's a bunch of what they call micro trauma. I'm quoting from a book that I don't even know the title of, but there's obviously lots of different types of trauma. And
throw another layer on top of that. If you're a very sensitive type, then a lot of those little T traumas can feel like big T traumas.
Yeah.
So there are layers and upon layers, and why this stuff is so soupy.
And if you don't know whether or not you meet the criteria for any of these, you can just a quick Google search on neglect or physical or mental abuse
or attachment styles.
Yeah.
Or go see a therapist.
Yeah, that's right.
It will help you identify that real quick.
That's right. And we'll have Miles give his contact me page in the show notes so that you can reach out to him for questions on any of these attachment theories, styles, and how they affect your friendships and personal relationships and romantic relationships. And so that you can have more fulfilling friendships, more fulfilling relationships, and just have access to a completely different quality of life where you get to love people and be loved by them.
Yeah, we can do a future, maybe a couple parter on attachment theory if we want to. There's so much out there on it, and it's so underrated, and it affects so much, and we don't think it does, but it does. It's how you relate to other humans, which is kind of a big deal since we're a communal species, and our biggest fear is to be exiled. A baby will lose the will to live if you don't pick it up, touch it, hold it, meet its needs. Like, it's a survival thing. And that's why it said in utero to 4 is very crucial, because that's when that's happening. A lot of stuff is pre-verbal. Sometimes we don't even know. We can't put words to what we're feeling because there were no words yet. We didn't know what those were, but it's in your body. Your nervous system is picking up on all this stuff. That's another cue on attachment style. Do you have a dysregulated nervous system? Well, yeah, because from 0 to 2, you got thrown in the fucking crib and made to cry it out when you slept. Well, now the world's fucking scary and I don't know if someone's going to pick me up. Now you have maybe an anxious attachment style or a very anxious, dysregulated nervous system. And you just grow up thinking it's normal, but it's not.
Well, that's right. Projecting our experience in the world, or even to our own personal future, is so easy to do. And all that is true, of course, everything you said. And also on a more practical level, the quality of relationships will dictate like so much more. I was talking to a buddy of mine who is a carpenter in Hawaii, and he had a really good job working for a construction company and doing remodels. And we were talking about finding jobs. And the best career things that have ever happened to me have happened because a hallway conversation, someone said, "Hey, did you know so-and-so is doing this?" And then boom, that changed my life. And, I asked him how he got his job. He's like, oh, a friend of my wife's was looking for a carpenter, and, I showed up. And it's like, but the jobs you apply for were all, crappy minimum wage, entry level positions that had very little advancement opportunities. And the reason I bring that up is the quality of your relationships and your access to people will affect the work you do, where you do it, how you do it, your quality of life while you do it.
Doors will open.
Doors will open and shut because of this conversation that you don't even know you're having all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. You must make the unconscious conscious, or it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
Carl Jung. It's a scary quote, as James Hollis says. So I agree with that. Yeah. You will think it's your fate if you're not conscious about what's going on. Oh, life's happening to me, not for me.
That's right. Dang, we could just end every podcast on that one.
Yeah, you could, really.
Any last thoughts?
I will maybe talk about this more in the future. It's just, it's so important with everything. And there's so much more. I left out so much. I had some other diagrams and shit, but we can leave it. Like addiction comes from insecure attachment style. All kinds of stuff comes from it. So next upcoming podcasts, we could think about throwing these back in. But for now, think about what attachment style you might have developed. Is it really secure? If you can tolerate intimacy and be loved and love, and you can tolerate someone leaving you, and you're sad and you grieve it, but you can move on and know that you can do it again, you're probably secure based. If someone gets close to you and you go and you take a step back or put up walls, this is a blanket statement, you're probably the avoidant type. If you really are scared to death about somebody leaving you in a relationship and you're trying to smother and control outcomes, you're probably anxious. And if you feel like you're kind of the hot cold, you're the fearful, avoidant, and or disorganized. People can get close, but then I go, nope. And then they leave and you go, wait a second. Then you probably have that one. I think that one's a little more complicated. If you had a dynamic like I did, you probably could have that. And like you said, some of this stuff comes in hardwired. It's a nature nurture thing. So if you're kind of a resilient human and you had trauma, I know some people that grew up in highly abusive homes and they still came out okay, secure based. I don't know how it's possible. But then if you're a very sensitive type, or you have something else going on, like prone to depression or ADD, you have some bipolar disorder, some sort of hardwiring that comes prepackaged, and you get hit with the environment, that's a big player too in how your attachment style plays out. You can go online and Google attachment theory. You get lots of good hits if you want trailheads on what that might look like for you. And if you're curious and you think, oh, why is my relationship not working? You could go to couples therapy. They'll probably be able to identify it real quick, or you can do your own individual therapy or get coaching on it. And it can be healed, and it's work. It's a lot of work. It's not easy, but it's worth it because, like you said, the quality of your relationships determines so much. And so if you're living in a insecure attachment style, your quality of relationships are going to suffer in some way. And so your doors will not be opened and or close, or you won't get very far. And you're going to have some feelings about it, some depression, anxiety, confusion, stuckness. And if you're not conscious of it, just like the quote you just said, you're going to think this is normal. This is the way it is. So it'd be like, I am too much. People always leave me. You have this sort of repetition compulsion where you're compulsed to repeat these patterns and find, like, let's take the battered wife scenario. They always find the abuser. This time I'm going to love that guy so much. He's going to love me back, and that I'm going to be deemed lovable. But you're just setting yourself up in the same pattern to meet the same abuser. And then another part of you goes, yeah, look, we aren't lovable. See, we're fucked. That's not true. You're just wounded, and you're meeting another wounded animal, and your attachment styles are battling. So we got to get off that merry-go-round. We got to go, okay, I'm not going to get into a relationship until I have a relationship with myself and found out what's going on here and get to secure base. And then back to the reticular activating system episode we did, you'll start seeing those healthy people out there before you might not even seen them, because you're looking for the super independent guy. That's the guy I'm attracted to. Well, are you really attracted to that? Or is that a wound, being attracted to that strong person because you don't really feel like you're very strong in yourself? We can do deep dives on the anima and animus too. That's another psychological Jungian term of everybody's masculine and feminine side. Your anima in men is largely determined by your relationship with your mom, like the feminine, and then vice versa. That's a whole other conversation and a whole other psychological theory, but it plays into all of this. Probably overwhelming people at this point, but we can definitely do more episodes on these topics if people are interested. I think it's super important and very underrated in humanity and in the field of psychology and psychotherapy.
Yeah, and I'm curious as to if you're listening to this podcast and you have relationship issues, whether you don't have the quality of relationship you want with your romantic partner, or you don't have the quality of friendships or the amount of friendships you want. Comment, because I'm very curious as to what the audience's experience has been in these realms. And awareness goes a long way. And just to piggyback on everything Miles just said, which was a lot, so you'll have to play it back again. But I would add is, if you know what you're lacking or what you have been working on and you're aware of it, you'll see it reflected into, like Miles said, people in your environment. And that's how I fell in love with my girlfriend. We had a first date and she told me the story of her pendant, about her symbol of commitment to giving herself space, time, and grace with difficult problems. And I thought, I've never been able to do that. And it's something I've been working on. I'm like, this person has a tremendous capacity for self-love, and I need that in my life. And I didn't think like, oh, this is the one. I thought, let's have a second date. I want to talk to this person more about how they live life and what they do. And, year and a half later, now I have 2 cats.
It's blossoming. Yeah, that's how it started. Skip the fish stage at least. Now the dogs are coming. Yeah, and if you sense your partner or spouse, whoever you want to call it, is having this problem, or you're having relationship problems, like, listen to this podcast together. Or if you have a friend that's struggling, feel free to share this podcast. Send it on, like, share, subscribe, whatever they say. If it helps, you think it will help them, go ahead and share it.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, find your love and belonging. Be the friend you wish your other friends would be, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Until then, we are out.